The Runaways went deep into the tank to find a format-breaking deck. Hatchets Dorinthea made a stunning appearance at the Pro Tour with 2 showings in top 8 and placing half of the Dory Runaways in top 64. Here we have Charles Dunn and Cody Williams to show the deck and explain the lines.
Hey everyone, Charles Dunn here to talk about the Dorinthea deck that I and several other members of Team Runaways took to the Pro Tour in Los Angeles this past weekend. Now this isn't your old Dorinthea deck of old that really used Dawnblade to get counters and use attack reactions and go-agains to try to push over opponents' defenses. This version is much more focused on using hatchets. Hatchet of Body and Hatchet of Mind. There's actually 2 versions of this Hatchet Dorinthea deck that made the top 8 overall. Unfortunately, neither were Runaways, but it was a very powerful choice, a very powerful way of playing Dorinthea enabled by the latest set Heavy Hitters. Now, the big appeal of Hatchet of Body and Mind over something like Dawnblade builds of old is that you get much more consistent value out of your go-again effects because you always have access to the second one. Even if they block out your first attack, you can attack with Body and then attack with Mind, and you get just a ton of really good value there. And with the new addition of agility tokens that came in through Heavy Hitters and some of the other effects that reward you for attacking multiple times, this just ended up being a really powerful deck with a lot of the new warrior cards. Of course, we do still have Dawnblade in the deck. This was actually only really played in one matchup exclusively into Dromai, because Dawnblade it's really easy to hit with Dawnblade into Dromai on all the dragons that they summon. So we have a strategy into Dromai where we use Dawnblade to accumulate counters as we're killing dragons, and then eventually turn on to their hero. But pretty much in every other matchup, we're looking to play hatchets because they're just more consistent value. Whenever your opponent is trying to block out, it's going to be a more consistent game plan, and the rest of the deck really supports playing hatchets over Dawnblade in most cases. A little bit of note on the Dorinthea hero power. It's once per turn effect. Whenever a weapon you control hits, you can swing an additional time with it. And of course that historically has been used to attack twice with Dawnblade and then threaten getting a counter on it. But now what it means with hatchets is that even if you attack with, say, Hatchet of Body, and then if they don't block it out, and then you attack with Hatchet of Mind and give it go again, so you basically have 2 go agains in that turn, you can then attack with Hatchet, the first Hatchet, a second time. And because of the text on it, it doesn't really matter which order or which one they let hit. If you attack a second time with the hatchet, it's going to get that +1 because either it got +1 because it was the second hatchet, or it's going to get +1 because you're alternating them back and forth. So there's just a lot of value in getting to swing an extra time, especially as you have tons of go again effects, thanks to things like agility tokens from Heavy Hitters. Going through the rest of the equipment here, we've got Valiant Dynamo. This gives you a lot of value as well, right? You get lots of damage from your hatchets, and every time you're swinging twice, Valiant Dynamo is going to let you block an extra time. Lets you cover up breakpoints. So if your opponent's attacking you for 4, you really don't care that much because you can always block 1 card and then Dynamo, and then next turn you're probably going to be able to reset the Dynamo and continue attacking them, or continue blocking out their next attack as you're keeping up the pressure on them. We've got Final Spring Tunic. Obviously, this is a great piece of equipment for every build. This deck in particular uses it very well, as we're going to discuss with the potential play lines here. Oftentimes, the cost curve of the deck, if you will, requires like a blue pitch. So you pitch a blue, you attack with Hatchet, you spend a second resource to give it go again, and then your third resource on the second Hatchet. And so if one of those hits and you're trying to threaten a third attack, that's where Final Spring Tunic comes in to provide you that 4th resource to attack a third time. But if they don't let you give that, if they don't let one of them hit, they don't let you trigger Dorinthea's ability, then you don't really need to use that Tunic resource. So you're not like committing to it. You're not like over pitching and having resources wasted. So I found Final Spring Tunic to be really efficient in this deck. I do know that some of the other Hatchet Dorinthea lists that made top 8 or that other groups were playing also use Grains of Blood Spill in the chest armor slot. This version that we played on the Runaways did not have that. We tested a little bit with Grains of Bloodspill, and we ultimately just found that it felt like Tunic was more consistent, and we could build the deck around using the extra resource from Tunic more consistently than we could extra pitches into Grains of Bloodspill to float the Vigor tokens. And so that's why we ended up on Final Spring Tunic. We just felt it was a more consistent option. But I think there is merit to building into the Grains of Bloodspill version, but I think that does require a slightly different build of the deck than we ended up on. And one of the reasons there is we're using Braveforge Bracers, which I think everyone is with this style of deck. It just has that Battle Worn 2 block, so you can block for 3 damage with it. And it basically gives you an on hit. It's like, hey, I'm threatening every attack. Not only is it threatening Dorinthea's hero power, it's threatening to let you use extra resources to pump into Braveforge Bracers to pump up your next attack. And it's just an all-around good piece of equipment. Particularly nice to play with Tunic, I think, because if you were playing it with Grains of Bloodspill, you'd sometimes have this tension where, do I want to pay into Grains? Do I want to pay in Braveforge Bracers? And a lot of times I felt like the correct answer was just pay into Braveforge Bracers. And so then why was I really playing Grains? Balance of Justice. This is the only armor helm that we have. Some versions might want Crown of Providence. So I just found that the difference between Balance of Justice and Crown of Providence was relatively minor. So that we just kind of cut down to only play a single armor helm. Of course, we've got a Null Rune hood in. So there's another option, but into most matchups where you want to block with your helm, not Wizard or Illusionist, you're going to play Balance of Justice. It gives you great potential of value against decks that draw multiple cards. So Brutes in particular, through Blood Rush Bellows or Art of War, into Ninjas as well if they're running Art of War, or even Warriors if they're playing Cash In. Or any deck playing Cash In. I suppose it's generic, but Kasai is probably the most common deck that would play Cash In. So yeah, Balance of Justice, just a really good consistent option from heavy hitters, and it's great into a lot of different matchups. Then we've got a slate of 3 Null Rune here, Null Rune Gloves, Boots, and Hood, so that if we are running all 3 Arcane Barrier, we're going to be running these 3 plus our Final Spring Tunic. So pretty much you play all 3 into exactly Kano, and most other times that you want to run just one AB, you're going to run the Null Rune Hood, because the Balance of Justice is probably the weakest piece of equipment out of the other options that we have. If you just need one Arcane Barriers, like into Illusionist or Runeblade. All right, let's get into the reds. I kind of broke these down into a couple different categories. We've got cards that give you Go Again. So these are cards that let you swing twice with your weapons. Most of them all cost 1 or 0. So you've got Blade Runner, Red Blade Runner, probably one of the best cards in the deck. It lets you, gives your Hatchet Go Again, pumps up your next Hatchet by 3. It's just really efficient. You can kind of spend a blue pitch plus Red Blade Runner to attack for 8 and reset your Dynamos, which is potential 2-card 9 points of value, because you're attacking for 8 plus getting 1 block on the back end. Just super efficient. Spoils of War, similar, it's only +2. It's not +3 on Blade Runner, so it's a little bit weaker. This deck doesn't really use the copper tokens very well, but there is a little bit of value in using copper tokens to against like Dromai when they use Kyloria. You can just give them a copper instead of letting them draw a card. But ultimately, I actually think Red Spoils of War is like one of the weaker cards in the deck, as weird as that is to say for, compared to a lot of the other things that we've got going on. Red Hit and Run. Now, this is the main reason to play Dorinthea, Hit and Run in general. It's to play Dorinthea over other warriors that you can play Hatchets with, like Kasai. I even tried Olympia for quite a while with this build, trying to use Cash In and like up the ante. But ultimately, the fact that Dorinthea gives you the potential to attack a 3rd time really means that, bonus Go Again is very efficient, because it basically gives all of your Hatchets on hit attack a 3rd time, which is a ton of value. Just really efficient to use 1 resource to attack for 3 damage with that 3rd swing. And Hit and Run enables that in a really big way, right? It gives you Go Again on that 2nd Hatchet, and it gives you +3 all in one card for 0 cost. This is just really an awesome card and enables your most powerful turns because you are Dorinthea and you're threatening that extra swing. And then finally, Take It on the Chin. This card is my pick for the strongest card in Flesh and Blood right now. It's kind of unassuming, but yeah, Take It on the Chin is like, I think the best card, the best Flesh and Blood card right now. It's 0 cost. It covers 2 damage prevention, so it can kind of act like a D-react. It covers awkward breakpoints where they're sending just like a 2-power attack at you or a 5-power attack or something. And then on the back end, it gives you an agility token. And this deck can really use agility tokens very well because now you can attack with both hatchets off just a single pitch card. So if you pitch a blue with your agility token, now you can attack for 5 with the 2 hatchets. And honestly, it's kind of like 6 damage because if they let the first one hit, then you can pump into Brave Forge Bracers. And if they don't let it hit, so they block it with a card, well, they're probably blocking on a 2-power attack. And if they block with a real card, that's kind of like 3 points of value because it's probably a 3 block. So I really just find that Take It on the Chin is just a huge amount of value to get that agility token, even if you're blocking out. You can block with like 3 cards or 2 cards plus Take It on the Chin, and then use your last card of blue to really swing the tempo back in your favor with a reasonable attack back with just a single card in hand. Love Take It on the Chin. Also, we've got some defensive-oriented cards. So we've got your standard slate of Sink Below. We've got 3 Sink Belows, 2 Fate Foreseens. Honestly, I would love to have a 3rd Fate Foreseen, but we didn't want too much defense. You have to have kind of a mix of good value here, both on offense and defense. We've got 2 Oasis Respite. This is a big reason to play Final Spring Tunic in the deck. This gives you a ton of game into Kano, which we thought would be fairly popular at the Pro Tour, and one did top 8, but it wasn't that popular throughout the rest of the field. But Oasis Respite gives you a lot of value into that matchup where you can just kind of put this in Arsenal and you're pretty well protected against a lot of their combo lines. It's also just good into a lot of other matchups that rely on attack reactions. It's kind of like a good defense reaction. But because it costs 1, you almost always need to be playing Final Spring Tunic with it in order for it to be efficient. And so I think that's one of the big draws of playing Tunic, is that it lets you play Oasis very reasonably. Same with Steelblade Shunt, similar concept. It's not good into Kano, but it's very good into other warriors, and we expected a lot of other warriors, and it's true. There was a lot of warriors at this Pro Tour. So the fact that we're playing Tunic lets us play 3 Steelblade Shunt Reds, and this just felt really good to be able to cast it off a single resource, probably from Tunic, and just block for 6, deal 1 damage to them if they're swinging with weapon. All around great defensive card. Also quite good into Guardians, like Victor. I did play a Victor at the Pro Tour, and Shunt was great into that matchup. And finally, I've got a 1 of Sigil of Solace. I like Sigil of Solace a whole lot. This deck is a deck that is really modal with its cards. Like it can use, like however many cards it has, it can use them on both offense and defense kind of equally efficiently. And Sigil of Solace really just fits right into that, where it's like, hey, if I draw this card in my hand, I'm always going to get 3 points of value off of it, no matter what. There's a lot of configurations in the matchup where I just kind of had an extra slot or 2. And Sigil just felt like it slotted into a whole lot of different matchups and really just kind of fit with what the deck was trying to do in a lot of cases. Specifically into decks that like Azalea that try to dominate you. This is a way you can kind of block damage. Into Dromai when they're trying to chip you in with 1 damage here and there from Ashwings. Sigil helps you get out of range. There were some combo decks floating around into the format too, where just gaining life was just valuable. So all in all, I like Sigil of Solace. I think it's a cool addition, and it's very flexible into a lot of different matchups. I didn't really want to run too many of them. I only have 1 because it doesn't actually block, and there are a decent number of cards in this deck that either don't block or kind of block for 2, kind of like Take It on the Chin or some of the D-reacts. That if you had too many null block cards in your deck or cards that don't block 3, it could get a little bit awkward into some situations. So I like 1. I think it's defensible to play 2, but I don't know that I'd play any more than that. We've got some more reds. Back on the offensive category, we've got In the Swing. There's 2... these are pump cards. I've got 2 In the Swing and 3 Blade Flurry. These are kind of like attack reactions that let you push damage. Kind of going back to what I was saying about like how so many cards in the deck are very modal, where you can use them both equally efficiently on offense and defense. In the swing, pumps for 3 damage if it's your second swing, which is very common with this deck. You almost always are going to be able to get to swing 2 times. But if not, you can just block for 3 with it. So it's kind of 3 damage either way. Same concept as Sigil. But it's really nice if you can pump your second attack that they would think they were blocking out. And then now you get the hit to trigger Dorinthea, let you swing a 3rd time. It's pretty valuable. I think I was playing around with 3 in the swing for a while, but honestly, we were just trying to find some extra slots here and there and looking at configurations into different matchups. And the 3rd in the swing just didn't quite cut it, but you could trade that in over like Sigil of Solace or one of the other defensive cards or something like that, and it would be totally fine. Blade Flurry, this card is huge value, right? This deck almost always attacks twice. So really it's just 1 card for 4. Pumps your first attack, pumps your second attack. It's just honestly just one of the best cards in the deck. A slight warning on this though, because your first Hatchet almost always is attacking for 2, if they block with a real card on it, so they're blocking it for 3, then this Blade Flurry is kind of only worth 3 value then, because giving your first attack +2 if they're already blocking 3 on it is a little bit inefficient. So it's not quite as good as it looks, but it's still quite good. Would definitely always play 3 Blade Flurry. And then finally, Spill Blood. This is a big payoff for playing Hatchets. 1 cost gives your axes +2 and dominate until end of turn. Into any kind of matchup that wants to play defensive, you really want to be setting up a turn where you can like spill blood into have a reaction like a Blade Flurry to make sure that it hits, and then use a hit and run so that you can attack 3 times. And then basically Spill Blood gives you 6 value, right? Because you're attacking 3 times with Hatchets thanks to Dorinthea. So Spill Blood is really great into a lot of matchups that are trying to play defensive or like give you kind of space to set up. This can be really used to punch through their defenses. And to round out the reds, we've got some 6 power attacks. Not a ton of attacks on this deck. I ended up going with 3 Command and Conquerors, 1 red Findel's Fighting Spirit, and 1 Down and Dirty. Now these are these are primarily for the Dromai matchup, because you do need some 6 power attacks to Phantasm Pop some of their dragons, or Prism as well. Command and Conquer does have some value into other matchups as just like a reasonably good attack. Because you are playing Warrior, they're probably going to be playing a lot of their defense reactions into you. So Command and Conquer is really good if they have a lot of defense reactions. The split for the other poppers, I knew I wanted at least 5. I thought maybe I might want 6, but once again, some of these slots are flexible. Findel's Fighting Spirit I like because it still has play into a lot of matchups where you kind of end up going to fatigue. It's just a big high power attack, kind of a 2-card 8. That's good value because it costs 3, so it's a blue pitch. Attacks for 7, heals you 1. Just a good efficient attack. And also, if you're playing into Dromai and they're attacking you, you can block with it and gain a life while still Phantasm Popping. And then Down and Dirty, this card is a little bit worse into most matchups compared to Findel's Fighting Spirit, but it is better to Dromai. Oftentimes, you'd find Dromai trying to do like a setup where they're trying to set up a big board kind of all at once and then overwhelm your hand a few turns in a row. And being able to put this in Arsenal and then use the Phantasm Popper out of Arsenal was really key to that matchup. And I definitely like having at least 1 Down and Dirty. And if Dromai was really popular, I might even consider a second one. But Dromai is very close to Living Legend now after winning the Pro Tour. So maybe it won't be quite as popular going forward. And maybe you can shave down on Down and Dirty. Let's go on to the yellows here. We've got 3 Blade Runners and 3 Hit and Runs. Just exactly what I said before. These cards are great. You're actually running 9 copies of both of these cards. Absolutely want to run these. They're just very efficient, very good at enabling exactly what your deck wants to do. And then the last yellow is one of Remembrance. Even though this deck has some attack reactions, sometimes it can struggle to close games if your opponent is playing very defensively. So just having one option here to make sure that you can really go the long game and shuffle back in some of your go-agains Just gives you a little bit more gas, and I'm a big fan of one Remembrance. Anybody who knows me personally knows that I start most of my deck lists probably with one Remembrance. I just love playing the long game and making sure that I have the tools to play that. Moving on to the blues, we're actually running 27 blues in this deck, which is a little bit higher than most Dorinthea or Hatchet Dorinthea decks I've seen. I think a lot of them run like 22. Honestly, our deck just felt like you just wanted a lot of blues. I was very hungry to have a blue pitch every single turn, and any turn that I didn't have a blue pitch, I was very unhappy with the deck. So that's why we run so many. So we've got a lot of the go again ones. So like I said, blue Blade Runner, blue Hit and Run, blue Driving Blade. You're not thrilled to cast this because it does cost 2 and gives you +1. But in a pinch, it's fine. If you have a Tunic resource laying around, you can still kind of use a blue plus Driving Blade and attack with both of your weapons. Generally, you're not really playing this until you're getting to the late game situation, though. But it fits the bill of letting you attack twice. Glint the Quicksilver, pretty good option, costs 0. If they trigger Reprise, it's good. If not, it's still just a 0 cost, give you go again. Not the best card in the deck, but not horrible either. Warrior's Valor is kind of cute because it gives you like kind of conditional go again, especially on your second swing, your second hatchet. Like if they block out the first one and then you're like, well, I'll play Warrior's Valor. And if you hit, I can attack again with it. And if you don't hit, well, I didn't get go again, kind of, nothing lost there. Honestly, I probably play this card one of the least times in a Hatchet's configuration, but it's quite a bit better in the Dawnblade configuration into Dromai because you can guarantee that you're going to hit the dragon. So definitely valuable there to kind of flex between those two strategies. Precision Press. This card is actually completely blank into most matchups, right? This is like a titanium bauble if you're playing Hatchets because it does say sword or dagger attack. But because we do want to flex into the Dawnblade strategy into Dromai, this is a valuable blue slot just because it will give your Dawnblade go again when you're running it. And honestly, like if we think back to the Blade Runners, they're kind of blanks into the Dawnblade strategy. So no matter what configuration of this deck, we're running some number of essentially blank cards, but it does end up working out pretty well because you'll find spots to block with those or just pitch them in those matchups, and it's pretty much never an issue. So we got 3 Precision Press. We've got a number of blue attack reactions. I've got 3 Overpower and 2 Fatal Engagement. These cards are really just good at finishing the game. These are some of your premium cards in late game situations where your opponent's low on life and they're just trying to block like one hatchet at a time. You can just push over the top and hopefully they're out of D-reacts and this will just end up killing them. I ended up cutting the 3rd Fatal Engagement just for a different blue. Because it was probably one of the weaker ones, although it is kind of nice that sometimes you can use this to pump up Command and Conquer, but honestly it just came up so much less often than Overpower did, so that I felt comfortable cutting down to just 2. And then finally we've got Heart of Find All. I love Heart of Find All. A lot of my decks play Heart of Find All just because it's great for a long game. This deck is like all about value-oriented play, and just pitching Heart of Find All to attack with both your hatchets is just really good value, right? You're gaining life for pitching. I'm a big fan of it. I've got one of Goblet of Bloodrun Wine. This card is a card that I personally find that I play quite a bit. Some of my other teammates did not have the same experience as me. They found it to be more of a liability because it is a 2-block, and so many other cards in the deck are 3-block. But it is quite powerful to be a setup card. Because a lot of your most powerful turns generally do require you to have 4 resources to swing your hatchets 3 times, plus have 1 resource. So giving you both the agility and the vigor really help to enable your most powerful turns, but there is a downside that if you can't find the space to play it and you really do need to be blocking, then it is kind of a liability because it only does block 2. So I don't think I would want to play more than 1, but I personally really like just having 1. And finally, I've got 2 Last Ditch Effort. I love this card, much the same as Remembrance and Heart of Find All. This card just gives you basically inevitability into a lot of matchups. If your opponent is trying to play the long game with you and trying to run you out of threats of go again, then this card will be able to close out the game. And it actually did win me one game at the Pro Tour into a Kasai matchup where we both presented like basically every card that we could, and the game went very long, and luckily Last Ditch Effort was able to trigger, attack for 8, go again, then I attacked with my Hatchets, which took basically all the cards that my opponent had remaining and allowed me to win the game. Some notable exclusions from the deck that I think might be worth at least mentioning is Shift the Tide of Battle. Did not really talk about that one in the yellow section. That's a card that we messed around with for a little bit, and I think that card is pretty good depending on the configuration. I think if you have more pumps, it's a little bit better, but we ended up shaving down a little bit on the pump spells. We didn't have too terribly many of those. We ended up cutting in the swing. We didn't have anything like cleave or lead with speed. But if you're running those cards, then I think Shift the Tide of Battle moves up quite a bit in priority. But that's just not the way we chose to build the deck. But anyway, make sure you check out the deck list. It's got sideboard configurations on the February and all the details there.
Thanks, Charles. Cody here. What we're going to do is we're going to go through a couple of the play lines. I mean, this is no Vin set, so the play lines aren't super complicated. But there are a good number of tricks, and this is mainly just a math deck. So for the most part, we're just trying to be as efficient as possible on every single turn. And we're also trying to make sure we get the most out of every single card that we play. So the most basic play that we're going to be doing, it's very, very simple. It is block 2 cards and your boots on your opponent's turn, and hold a 2-card hand that is going to be a go again and a blue. This is the, pretty much the most efficient play, or one of the most efficient plays in the deck. This is kind of your bread and butter. This is what you're going to try and be doing almost every single round. There's a couple of rules when it comes to this deck. 1, try and block with dynamos every single round. And 2, try and refresh your dynamos every single round. This is essentially just a free health every single round that you play it. This is one of the whole reasons to be playing the deck in general. The impressive part about this deck is that you can block essentially for 7 for free, because for the most part, we don't care about giving up 2 cards. Obviously, this value goes up if you have a D-React or a Shunt off your Tunic or whatever else. But you can block for about 7 for free. And then on your round, you come back, you swing your Hatchet, paying your resource, preferably playing a red Blade Runner, and then swing your other Hatchet. Now, that's going to refresh your boots, and we already blocked for 7 on our opponent's round. And for this round, we're going to be coming in for 8. We have 2 from this Hatchet, 6 from this Hatchet, gets the pump for swinging after body, and then you get the +3 from the Blade Runner. So essentially, this is a 2-card 8 that also refreshes your boots. However, we are also counting this on here, so it'd be a 7. So it's a 7 plus an 8. We have a 15-round turn on our 4 cards, which is kind of just one of the base levels of the deck. Obviously, you don't always have a red Blade Runner, but that's kind of the idea of what we're just trying to attempt to do on a round-to-round basis. Okay, let's talk about a couple of tricks with this deck that when people play it for the first time, they don't realize, or if they're playing against it, they don't realize, and it's something that you can kind of take advantage of. But Dorinthea, first of all, says that when a weapon you control hits, you may attack an additional time with that weapon. It doesn't care which weapon it is. So if you swing body, they block body, that's your first attack, and then you swing mind, and they let this hit, you can swing mind again. Likewise, if they let body hit, you swing mind, then you swing body. Most people know to play it that way. But if either of them hits, either of them can swing again. And the thing about Hatchets that people forget is when it gets the +1, it gets the +1 for the whole turn. So for example, you swing body, they block it. Okay, no problem. You swing mind, it gets a +1. Doesn't actually get a counter, but it gets a +1 for the turn. We'll represent it with the counter. And let's say they don't block this. Well, Dorinthea triggers, and you get to swing with it again, and it retains its +1 because it already got the +1 earlier, and it gets the +1 for the entire turn. So it doesn't matter which one of your weapons hit, as long as one of them hits, and you have the correct setup, you can go into a 3-swing play, which is kind of like the bread and butter of the deck. Now let's look at one of the most common ways that we are going to set up our big spill blood turn, our big, swing 3-wide turn. There's a couple of different ways to get into this, but this is going to be one of the most common. Typically what's going to happen is first you're going to set a hit and run, setting hit and run, or setting spill blood, or even a take it on the chin. These are all great cards to set because they lead into what the big combo turn looks like for this deck. So in this case, what we're going to be doing is we're on our opponent's turn. We have a hit and run set. We have our Tunic at 2, so it's going to flip up to 3. And these are the kind of situations that you're looking for in order to keep a hand. Our hand ends up being 2 blues, spill blood, and a take it on the chin. This is quite often what it's going to look like. And because we play on both sides of the board, we're going to make sure we play, appropriately on our opponent's turn. So rule 1, always try and block with dynamos. So we're going to make sure we try and get dynamos in there. And let's look at how much mana we need to play this next turn. We need, if we want to swing 3 times and play spill blood, then we need 1 for the spill blood. And then we're going to need 3 because it's 1 for each hatchet. And we want to swing 3 times. So we need 4 mana. We have Tunic coming up. This is why we play Tunic, so that we can scour our power turns around the Tunic counter. So that leaves us the ability to block with 2 of our cards and our dynamos and set up a 3-wide. So that would look like blocking with these, playing our Take It on the Chin. This is one of the reasons why we've said that Take It on the Chin is one of the best cards in the game, is because of its power to flow into something like this. He's going to give us an agility token. But look, we blocked for 6, which is pretty admirable block-wise, right? So we block for 6, and then we're going to go to our turn. So this turn ends. We take some damage, more than likely. We're going to take up our Tunic at the beginning of the turn. Agility is going to pop. We are going to play our blue, and we're going to lead with Spill Blood. We are going to be floating 2 mana. We will swing with our Hatchet of Body. This is going to eat 1 of our mana. This is going to be coming in for 4 with Dominate from the Spill Blood, and it has Go Again from the Agility token. Most of the time, they're not going to be able to block the 4 perfectly, but if they do, it's fine. It's not a big deal. The opponent blocks or not. If they do not cover this up, then we get to swing a 3rd time with Hatchet. If they do cover this up, then they have to cover up Mind, or we still get to do the same thing with Mind. So we're either getting our opponent's whole hand here, or they're taking a bunch of damage. After this, we'll break the chain by playing hit and run. The great thing about the hatchets, they don't care if the chain is broken. They still will look and see if something was swung before this, which is fantastic. We will then swing with Hatchet of Body. Playing the hit and run, because we've swung with this, is going to give +3 to this hatchet and Go Again. That's going to cost us 1. This is now coming in for 8 Dominate. It gets the 2 from the Spill Blood, 3 from the hit and run. This is why setting hit and runs is just magic. And then it gets the extra +1 because we swung body before that. Comes in for 8 Dominate. Let's say this one go ahead and hits. We'll then use our Tunic, and because Dorinthea is triggering on Mind, we get to swing Mind again. It retains the 3, like the +1 from swinging body earlier. So it's 3, and Spill Blood +2, which is 5. So we swung a 4, a 5, and an 8. So we swung for 17 this round. We refreshed our dynamos. We blocked for 6 on the previous, on your opponent's turn. So it was a 23 5-card cycle, which is just awesome. It came in 3 different packets, which are hard to block. This is one of the power turns for the deck. Now, in the similar vein, let's look at another power turn that's going to come up quite often that does not involve Spill Blood. It still is around a Tunic. We don't even need any setup here. But essentially, anytime you get a hit and run and a Blade Runner in the same hand, maybe we had one of these set and then we got the other one, you can look off of 1 blue and your Tunic to swing 3 times in a very similar manner. It's not as powerful, obviously, as Spill Blood, because Spill Blood's giving +2, but this is another one of the things in your arsenal that you're going to want to use. The great thing is we still get to block for 4, which is awesome. Go to our turn, take up our Tunic. Then we get to play, it's a little bit hidden. Pitch. Swing 1, coming in for 2. Our Tunic is up. We have 2 cards in hand. They say no blocks. Blade Runner. This is going to give this Go Again and +3 to our next swing. Then we play hit and run. And then we swing Body of Mind, we swing Hatchet of Mind. This is then going to come in for 9. 3 from the Blade Runner, 3 from the Hit and Run, 3 from the Hatchet of Mind ability, and our Tunic come around, swing with this one for 3 again. This is something that you're trying to set up quite often. This is why we really value putting Hit and Runs in the arsenal, Blade Runners in the arsenal as much as possible. Then when you get a hand like this, imagine you get the same type of hand. On one of your turns, you take a little extra damage to set a Hit and Run. And this turn, we have some extra cards. We get to block for 7 with our Tunic up, and we still get to play the same cards out of our arsenal, but we block for 7 that way. It's just incredibly efficient in most of the ways that this deck operates. This is your second big power turn that you're going to be looking to pull off at some point in the game. You typically only need one of these per game in order to win, which is what I really like about the deck, especially if your opponents make any mistakes or they can't block or they're getting greedy. You can kind of pull these almost out of nowhere. Okay, this is what I call the poor man's triple swing. We can do this type of triple swing with no Tunic up and no arsenal. If we have an arsenal, it's even easier or even better. But with no arsenal, no Tunic up, we can come in for a triple swing. It's actually quite nice. What you're going to need for this is a Hit and Run and a Take It on the Chin and a blue. The other card doesn't matter. Now, again, if we have a Hit and Run set because we're looking for something, this is great. If we have a Take It on the Chin set, this is great. But we can just draw this hand naturally quite often. You know, any color Hit and Run works for this as well. And this is just like the poor man's triple swing. We don't even need Tunic up. So, again, we start on our opponent's turn because we are a 2-cycle deck. We like to play on both sides of the board. What we're going to go ahead and do here is we are going to block for 6. We're going to block with our boots. We're going to block with this. We're going to block with a Take It on the Chin, which is great. We get our 6 value. Because we block with Take It on the Chin, we're going to get an agility token. Go to our round, flip this up to 2. And we are just going to swing with our Hatchet of Body here. Pitching, floating 2 resources off 1 blue. This is going to come in for 2 go again. Now, let's say our opponent blocks this. Now, we could still play the Hit and Run in the next swing, because if this one hits, we still get our triple swing. Or we could always just set the Hit and Run. We're not committed to any plays here. We do have our Tunic coming up next round, so maybe we get a bigger play there. And maybe we don't want to risk. Maybe we want to guarantee it later. That's one of the great parts about the deck is it's very modal. You're not super committed to, a lot of the lines you play. But in this case, we're just going to say that our Hatchet of Body swung, had go again from the agility token pop. It hit for 2. We're going to go ahead and play the Hit and Run. And then we're going to swing with the Hatchet of Mind. This is going to come in for 6. It gets 3 from the Hit and Run, gets go again. And it gets +1 because we swung with body before it. So it comes in for 6 go again. When that's done, we get to swing Hatchet of Body. Hatchet of Body is going to swing for 3 because we just swung with Mind before that. So this whole entire play ends up being an 11 for 2 cards. So we resolve 2 cards, and we swung for 11. We refresh our dynamos, which is great, and we block for 6 on the other turn. That is a 4-card 17. That is, again, way above rate. I appreciate you guys watching. I hope that these helped just get you started. The play lines for this isn't super complicated. It's more about being incredibly efficient and understanding what your math looks like. And if you do that, you're going to have a ton of success. The other big thing about this deck are the game plans. This is a game plan deck. If you like, having a strict game plan of how to win every matchup before you sit down at the table that's strong, you're going to play your game. That's what I love about this deck is that, yeah, for the most part in all the games, I'm just swinging 2 hatchets and blocking with dynamos. But the difference is the cards that I'm looking for, how aggressive I'm playing, what defensive cards I'm bringing in, where I'm looking for triple swings at, what armor am I trying to get out of my opponent? Am I bringing Remembrance in? Am I bringing Shunts in? Am I setting up like a pitch stack? There's like a whole bunch of different game plans, as well as how the sideboard options with this deck work, which really is what brings this deck over the edge. And it's great just sitting down and knowing exactly what you want to do into every opponent. Now, in the description, we are going to have a February link to this deck. You can have the full deck list and go start playing it. If you are a premium member of the Discord, we will have a link to a February that's going to have all of the buttons. It'll have buttons for every single matchup, as well as it's going to have a matchup guide for you as well. So if you'd like to join our premium Discord, link will also be in the show notes below. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, we're getting rid of the envelope
7
here, but
envelope
What we could do
and
here is go
darkness.
ahead and play the envelope.
All 3 pitches of Envelope and Darkness.